Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and board game aficionado. Welcome to Rogue Watson Reviews, my video review series where I take a look at tabletop games. These videos are divided into 3 parts. First, I'll introduce the game, take a look at the components, and briefly explain how it plays. Second, I'll run through a sample turn or round of the game. And finally, I'll list my pros and cons and provide my final thoughts. If you enjoy my videos, consider supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shoutouts to my Platinum patrons, Andrew, Brian, Richard, Joe, and Will. And Gold patrons, RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy and Yuma, Marcos David Vicente Gilberto, Sean, aka Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, and Aukshi. Thank you all very much for your support. With this video, we're going to be taking a look at Dice Throne Season 2. Dice Throne Season 2 is a head-to-head dice combat game for 2 to 6 players in which players choose a fantasy character with unique abilities and dice, and roll those dice each turn to try and activate one of their abilities in order to reduce the opponent's life and be the last one standing. Season 2, released in late 2018 as the sequel or follow-up to the original Dice Throne, which launched in early 2018, with creators Nate Chatelier and Manny Tremblay officially partnering with publisher Roxley. Fun fact, that was the first Rogue Watson Reviews video I ever did. Dice Throne Season 2 keeps the exact same gameplay as the first and adds 8 new characters, released as a series of 2-character mini boxes. Now, you may be wondering if it's worth reviewing what is essentially a series of standalone expansions. My answer is obviously yes, and that's because the game features vastly improved components and general gameplay improvements, as well as the incredibly sexy battle chest box. Let's take a look inside. Now, as I mentioned in the opener, I'll be specifically looking at my Kickstarter edition battle chest for Dice Throne Season 2. I don't back very many games on Kickstarter, but I want to say this is far and away one of the most impressive games I've ever received. The box perfectly fits all 8 characters in this very neat tray. You can see here they've got the game trays pullouts, which contain all the pieces you need for each character, as well as this really neat side view, which kind of looks like a fighting game. So you know exactly where each character is without having to actually pull each tray out and see, which is very, very cool. There's a middle slot right here for the rule book, as well as, let's see if I can pull these out. They're kind of stuck in here, but these are cards with full color artwork for all the characters, and that way you can literally deal these out to people. You see they got the same backing, and then as a way to have players either pick a character or randomly choose one of the fantasy characters, and it includes characters from Season 1 of Dice Throne, which is also very cool. I really can't stress how just amazingly convenient and good looking this makes the entire game setup. You can just pull out one of these trays and away you go. Let's take a look at one of our character trays here. These are the game trays, which has everything in a nice little spot. Try not to reflect everything. It is highly reflective. You can see that, you can kind of hear that the pieces do move around in there. So if they go upside down and whatever, if they get jostled around, you're going to end up with the tokens moving around. But for the most part, it does a pretty good job. This right here, the cover, is actually the back of the foldable, the front of the new trifold player board, which is incredible. This is a huge, huge improvement over what Season 2 looked like. Try to focus in there and get a good view. You've got a prominent front and center character artwork. Manny's art is fantastic, as well as the various abilities on the side, each of which contains unique character art for that character, which is just incredible. What the back end looks like. And then in the tray, we've got a list of our tokens, what all the various abilities can do, as well as how many you should have. You can see with the different dice facings on there, status effects. The back end is also an improvement because it features their complexity, the components that they have, as well as any frequently asked questions that may come up in the rules, which is just a really, really great shorthand way. Instead of having to look up a back end of the rule book, every single character already has their character-specific questions about how to operate their various status effects or abilities right there on the card, which is very cool. And prominent artwork throughout, which is fantastic. You can see here how the components definitely did get jostled a bit as I was sitting there shaking it around. You've got a spot for the tray. Everybody's got their unique dice, which all look real good. See if I can get it to focus. There we go. Very, very cool looking dice. Cool like etching pattern on there. And every single character's dice is going to be a little different and unique, which is very neat. The combat power and the health bar, I believe, is largely the same from previous Dice Throne games. There's a little spot for the status effects, which kind of get jostled around a bit. Again, if you're very careful about pulling this and storing it the right way, these won't get jostled. I actually put mine sideways when I put it on the shelf. You can see the actual box kind of even looks like, if I can kind of fit it in the frame, kind of like a giant book. Oh, and then obviously inside, more cool artwork. Very neat. The cards is the other main thing I wanted to show, which is also a very big improvement over Season 1, which is the fact that you now have card art on all of the cards, most of which these are upside down. Even the generic card has generic card art, which is great. This is the actual Dice Throne person people are trying to defeat, I think, or take over. I don't know the story. But you can see here all their specific character art, like their upgrade abilities, have artwork featuring either that character or their weapons or something about them, which is really, really fantastic. I love all of these together. They're very thematic. The artwork is nice. It's just they all look much improved. The actual presentation is huge here. And I'm going to give you an example real quick, because if this is your first time looking at Dice Throne, you may say, okay, well, these look great, but you know, what's the big deal? Why are you fawning over these? Well, it's because Season 1... You can see here is a Season 1 player board, which is still fine. It's got all the information on there, but it just doesn't look nearly as good. It doesn't have, it's just got the one character art kind of in the background. It feels very flat, and then it just has all the abilities written, and that's it. Whereas with this one, not only do you get the cool foldable format, but you can see here, it's just night and day. You've got artwork everywhere. You've got the full character art right in the center without anything blocking it. There's just no contest how much of a huge, huge improvement this is for Season 1. The one caveat about Season 2 is it makes Season 1 kind of look like crap by comparison, and I really enjoyed how Season 1 looked. Same thing with the cards. You can see the CP and the health, pretty much the only thing that did stay the same between Season 1 and Season 2. But the cards, this is the Pyromancer I'm looking at. Look, this is the cards. They're literally just text. That's all it is. Which, it gets the job done, but it doesn't look near as good as having all that really sexy artwork on every single card. So this is an example of what Season 1 looks like compared to Season 2. And I wanted to give a special shout out to these components because they're just so damn impressive. I was really blown away by how well this all looks. Just absolutely great. A brief rundown of the playthrough. On their turn, a player will draw one card and one combat power. From there, they can play cards by spending their combat power, which is noted by this dial here, in order to play their cards. And cards are usually upgrades to abilities, but can also be things like rerolls or give new status effects or whatever else. You can see like this one actually goes on the board and covers up that previous spot on the board in order to upgrade it and turn it into a more powerful ability. Then they begin the dice rolling phase, where you roll your dice. You've got your 6 dice. Oh, dear. Well, that's one for good for spilling. Recording this live, everybody. Record it live. There's your dice. You get to roll 3 times and keep whichever dice rolls you like, just like Yahtzee. The goal is to activate one of the abilities on your player board, typically dealing damage to your opponent. Players can then play orange or red cards during the dice rolling phase to alter these rolls before the abilities go off, and the opponent gets a chance to then use their defensive roll, assuming it's a defendable attack. After that, the player gets a final chance to play any of their regular upgrade cards. And then it's the opponent's turn, and players just go back and forth like that until one player is reduced to 0 hit points. And that's how the game plays. Let's take a look at a sample turn to get a better example. Alright, so I've set up a sample 2-player game between the Gunslinger and the Samurai. Now you can play Dice Throne with more than 2. It really feels like Season 1, it's still ultimately designed for a one-on-one experience, but the rules for multiplayer have improved somewhat, and you can play either a free-for-all or various different team variants as well. But for the sake of the sample game, we're going to be doing a one-on-one with the Gunslinger and the Samurai, which I believe is one of the packs you can buy. And I think, in my opinion, after playing through all the characters, definitely the two easiest, more straightforward characters to play. So, we're at the beginning of the game, we've set everything up, we've got our player boards, our dice, our cards, health is at 50, combat power is at 2. The Samurai is going first because they rolled higher, and the Samurai actually has a special ability where they gain their honor if they are the first players to start the game. And honor just means that you can spend it to increase their attack damage by 1 per honor, or they can spend 2 to increase it by 3, which is actually kind of similar to the way the reload works for the Gunslinger. And you can set this up different ways. I usually, if they have the token, I put them on the player board itself just to help keep track, and then I'll keep the rest of the tokens just kind of in the player tray as you go. So Samurai begins. The Samurai player skips their income phase because they are the first player. This is our hand of cards. And I believe we've got some good cards to manipulate our dice with, and only 2 upgrades. We only have 2 CP. At any time, we could sell a card to gain a CP. I think we're okay with using 1 CP to upgrade our Wakizashi into Wakizashi 2, so it'll do a little bit more damage. So, we'll go down to 1 combat power, and then we literally put this on top of the other ability, just like that. And now it just becomes a straight upgrade. Roll the dice. We begin our dice rolling phase. You don't have to have a tray in the middle, but obviously I've got the tray. And by the way, the game does not come with these Dice Throne player mats. I have purchased those separately because I'm just a big fan of the artwork, and the mats are very nice. All right, what do we have here? We've got 2 swords, let's see, what is that? Rising Sun, and 2 Kabutos. Which, that is very close to getting Solemnity, which requires 2 swords and 3 Kabutos, which inflicts shame and deals 7 damage. If we can, we've got 2 more rolls, so that's pretty good. I'm kind of liking that. So in other words, we would keep 2 swords and 2 Kabuto facings, and we're going to roll this dice 2 times and try to get either a 4 or a 5, because it tells you what your facings are right there. I like my odds. Let's see what I can do. Well, crap. That's 1 roll that doesn't work. And that one does. That's number 4, which is a Kabuto. Now, had I not rolled that, I could have used a card, this one, So Wild, to change the value of any 1 dice. So I could have used that for 2 CP. Unfortunately, I did not give myself enough CP to actually use it, so I was a little bit of a risky there. But thankfully, we got it, which means we can activate our Solemnity ability, which inflicts shame and deals 7 damage. Shame is a unique debuff status effect that the Samurai has, which simply reduces the attack damage for the opponent by 1 while they have a shame. Shame, shame. So we put our little status effect token for the Gunslinger. You've been shamed. And now 7 damage is going to the Gunslinger, but the Gunslinger has a chance to respond. First of all, I could have played any of these cards. I don't actually have any orange cards for the Gunslinger, so I couldn't have changed the result of that. And her defensive ability is pretty unique. You just roll 1 die between you and your opponent. Both get to roll 1 die, and if the Gunslinger's roll is greater, then they can either deal undefendable damage back to the Samurai or prevent half damage, which is really nice. So, Samurai is going to declare the duel because the Gunslinger is going to declare a duel in response, and as that is regular damage and not undefendable, they get to defend. So this Gunslinger rolled a 3. That's not great, but let's see what the Samurai can roll in response. A 2, which means the Gunslinger wins, and they can either deal 3 damage back to the Samurai or prevent half the damage rounded up. I think I'm going to just prevent. It's actually about the same either way, but I'm going to go ahead and prevent half that damage rounded up. So I'm going to prevent 4 damage and only take 3 damage. So we go to 47. All right, the Samurai has a chance to play more cards, but they're not going to. So end of the turn. Gunslinger, at the start of their turn, they can gain a reload status effect, which essentially just lets them get a a free roll of the dice whenever they do an attack. They are still shamed, unfortunately. They get to get the income phase, so they gain a combat power, and they can draw another card. Hey, we got a card we can actually use during our combat phase, which is pretty nice. However, the Gunslinger got two of some of the best possible cards to get early, which is to upgrade their passive ability and to upgrade their defensive ability. Both of these obviously are going to go off every single turn, so they're very, very helpful to upgrade. We can either get a reroll on our reload, which we'll use all the time, or we can get a better duel. So you can choose to either deal 3 damage or prevent half, round it up. How is that actually better than what you can do? You want to attack each roll 1 dice. If your roll is equal or greater, let's see, if your roll... Oh, so the difference is your roll can be equal or greater, whereas the base one, if your roll is greater. That's the only difference that I can see for Duel 2. So, in fact, if I had tied, that would not have gone off because I rolled a 3 and they rolled a 2. Whereas this gives me a slightly better chance. I think I'm going to upgrade my quick draw, though. Being able to re-roll that reload is pretty fun. So I'm going to spend the 2 CP, which brings me down to 1 onto the Gunslinger. I could do that to gain a reload. Ooh, spend 1 CP to just gain 2 cards. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave myself a CP just in case I want to do samesies. So we're going to roll our dice. Got my 5 dice here. All right, we rolled 3, what is that, bullets, 1 dash, and 1 bullseye, which doesn't give me anything out of the gate. 1, 2, 3, 4 is a small straight, however, which would be showdown, which kind of works similarly to duel, where you can deal 7 damage if you roll greater than the opponent, or 5 damage if you roll less than the opponent by rolling 1 dice. And we can also try and go for, let's see, 2... Oh, wait, I thought I had a 1. I didn't have a 1. I have 2, 3, 4. I don't have a small straight yet. I am somewhat close to a small straight. Or I could go for a bounty hunter. Inflicting bounty could be helpful. Or simply do my revolver, which you really don't want to ever do this one if you can help it. Let's try and go for the straight. So we've got 2, 3, 4... we could keep the 6 and try and go for a 5 2 times, but I'm going to take a little bit more confidence and see if I can roll either a 1 or a 5 in these 2 rolls. We rolled a 5, so now we've got the small straight. 2, 3, 4, 5. If this is either a 1 or a 6, then we get the large straight. Whoops. Keep it in the tray, keep it in the tray. It is not, unfortunately. Almost a take cover, but not quite. And samesies doesn't work because that changes the value of one of my dice to be identical to the value of another one of my dice. Which would not help me here. So we activate the showdown small straight. We target the opponent, and we each roll 1 dice. I'm going to roll a 3, and the samurai is going to roll also a 3. But this one is equal or greater, which means it is going to deal 7 damage to the samurai. Now we can also, unfortunately, we have a reload and a shame. So the shame means it deals 1 less damage. So that means it's 6 damage, and we remove the shame. We're no longer shamed. So 6 damage, but we can use our reload to, let's see, reload, attack. And we spend this token if you roll 1 dice and add half the value as damage rounded up. So 6 damage right now. Oh, great. Well, let's use our new ability we upgraded quick draw, so we can roll that again with a 5. So rounded up is 3 damage. Half rounded up is 3, so 6 plus 3 is 9. 9 damage to the samurai. Samurai is going to roll their defensive roll phase, which is stand tall. They can roll 3 dice. And let's see what happens. They can deal 1 damage per sword. They can deal prevent 1 damage per kabuto. And on a sun, they prevent 2 damage. So I prevent 3 of that damage, so I'm going to take 6 damage. Puts the samurai down at 44 and deals 1 damage back to the gunslinger. And I did get... Oh no, if no kabutos or rising suns were rolled, I gain shame. And then I deal 1 damage back to the gunslinger at 46. So they spent their reload token. The gunslinger has a final chance to play cards. They're not going to. And then it would be the samurai's turn. And that's just an example of how a sample round plays. People are dealing damage constantly, and it really works well on one-on-one because you're constantly being involved. You're rolling your defensive roll phase. You're playing cards. Later in the game, obviously, you have more cards and more CP in order to really jack with your opponents, make them re-roll dice, and all that kind of thing. So it really works very, very well. Let's go over my pros, cons, and final thoughts for Dice Throne Season 2. Pro: the 2-character mini boxes let you pick and choose at a lower price point if you don't want or need all the characters, although you should note that if you want all the Season 2 characters, it's better to order the full Battle Chest box, or Season Pass, I think as they call it. Out of the 4 options, I would recommend the Gunslinger Samurai combo if you want a relatively straightforward group of characters, or the Pirate and Artificer combo if you're looking for some added complexity. But I think these lower price points definitely helps add some shelf appeal and lets you jump into the game with 2 characters just ready to go one-on-one. Pro: amazing production values. I was absolutely blown away by the improvements between Season 1 and Season 2. The full character art on the new foldable character boards, the artwork on every single card. Manny's art is fantastic, and I'm so glad we got much more of it in Season 2. Pro: the new characters all feel vastly different, unique, and thematic. The Gunslinger duels her opponents with a single dice roll on every single defensive roll. The Huntress has an entire second character in her Tiger that can deal extra damage or take some nasty hits, while the Cursed Pirate is on a timer, flipping over her character board into a massively upgraded undead form that literally burns out after a few turns. Even if you're a Dice Throne master and veteran, most of these new characters require very different but very fun playstyles. Con: at an MSRP of around $24.99, those 2-character mini boxes feel a bit too pricey compared to the $50 you got for Season 1 that included 6 characters. And if you want all 8 Season 2 heroes, the Battle Chest, or Season Pass, I think as it's referred to, has a retail price of $89.99. That's about twice as much as Season 1. The Kickstarter was a much better deal, even with the upgrade to the Battle Chest, but at this point you're paying close to Gloomhaven prices for a much, much more casual game. I love the game, but that's definitely a hard pill to swallow. Con: some of the characters' complexity really stretches the otherwise casual dice-chucking gameplay and creates some fiddly upkeep, such as the Artificer's drones and energy and the Tactician's tactical advantage. I definitely don't want to see future characters get any more complex than those two. Final verdict: I already loved the first Dice Throne box as one of my favorite games of 2018. The brilliant combination of the dice-throwing Yahtzee gameplay with the upgrading of abilities and selecting moves like a turn-based RPG, all while being incredibly easy to teach and play. Season 2 is better in every way. Better heroes, better components, better rules to create the best Dice Throne experience yet. Now bring on Season 3! Thank you everyone for watching this video review. You can enjoy more videos, reviews, and live plays of board games, video games, and tabletop RPGs here on my YouTube channel, as well as my website at RogueWatson.com, and you can support my work at patreon.com/RogueWatson. Thank you!